Welcome everyone to today's webinar. I am Jessica Kim Cohen with Becker's Hospital Review. We will begin today's webinar with a presentation and we'll have time at the end of the hour for a question and answer session. You can submit any questions you have throughout the webinar by typing them into your control panel in the space labeled Enter a Question for Staff and clicking Send. We are looking forward to hearing your questions. Today's session is being recorded and will be available after the event. In about a week following the webinar, we will be sending all registrants a copy of the presentation to the email you used to register. At this time, it is now my pleasure to introduce today's presenters. Matt Castleton is Vice President of Marketing and Consumer Engagement for Trinity Health. Matt leads a team of marketing professionals at Trinity Health System Office in the identification and implementation of scalable marketing technology solutions with a focus on consumer engagement and patient acquisition. The team's responsibilities span CRM, digital marketing, brand measurement, consumer engagement platforms, and infrastructure. Karen Cameron is Manager of Marketing for Trinity Health System Office. As Marketing Manager, Karen leads and supports strategic, enterprise-wide marketing campaigns. She joined Trinity Health in 2015 as Manager for Internal Communications and joined the marketing team in December 2016. Mitch Holdwick is Marketing Director for St. Joseph Mercy Health of the Southeast Michigan region. Mitch is an experienced marketing director with a demonstrated history of working in the hospital and healthcare industry. He is skilled in demand generation, strategic planning, public speaking, CRM, and digital marketing. Mitch has been recently tasked with leading all digital demand generation strategies for Southeast Michigan and is certified in healthcare customer relationship management. Rachel Neely functions as the senior leader of eVariant's customer success team. In this role, she serves as a healthcare marketing expert, guiding clients through collaborative workshops, identifying and reconciling points of marketing and physician ROI, overseeing the usability of eVariant product and solutions to ensure they meet client-specific needs, and collaborating with physician and marketing practice leaders to build new assets and best practice points of view. I am pleased to turn the floor over to Rachel to begin today's presentation.
Thank you so much, everyone. In our home. We feel for you. Just a quick overview before we dive in today. So eVariant is a healthcare data and technology company. We provide our clients with a platform to optimize growth through smarter patient acquisition and retention. Our solutions deliver actionable intelligence that enables healthcare providers to find, guide, and keep patients for life. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to turn the floor over to Matt Castleton to give us a little preview about Trinity Health.
Thank you, Rachel. For those unfamiliar with Trinity Health, we're an $18 billion Catholic healthcare system headquartered in the Detroit area with regional health systems branded uniquely and located as far west as Fresno, as east as New England, and as south as Fort Lauderdale. Truly, our mission and core values drive our vision and strategy. When you step into one of our facilities, engage with our caregivers, or simply participate in a huddle or a meeting, you can sense the special culture of a Trinity Health ministry. We've embarked on a people-centered strategy that embraces a shift to population health, places a strong focus on communities and the underserved, yet increasingly is emphasizing profitable growth. So this slide displays our 22-state footprint with 94 hospitals, 133,000 colleagues, thousands of physicians. We have a broad act. Over 67,000 babies were born in our hospitals last year. We're going to highlight one of our regional health ministries, St. Joseph Mercy Health System. St. Joe's is one of 2 regional health ministries in the state of Michigan, comprising 8 hospitals, over 20,000 colleagues, and 3,600 physicians. Mitch Holdwick is going to tell you a little bit more about this ministry.
Thanks, Matt. And this is just kind of an overview, as Matt mentioned, of the state of Michigan. We've recently combined with the west side of the state, so now we have 8 hospitals, over 2,000 licensed beds. You can see some of the other vitals that kind of shows the breadth of our state across the system.
Fantastic. Thank you, guys. We here at eVariant, we're very fortunate. We've been on this partnership with Trinity Health, and really today what we're going to do is talk about that journey. And it's going to be less me talking and more the Trinity folks talking, because it's important that you hear about the journey directly from them. So just taking a step back and looking at the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about today about we as on the vendor side are seeing across the nation as it relates to healthcare mergers and acquisitions. From there, I'm actually going to turn it back over to Matt and Karen to discuss their own journey through mergers and acquisitions and how they, as a nationwide health system, like you saw from Matt, are approaching enterprise growth. We're going to shift then into what it means at a regional level. So we're really going to focus on kind of Mitch's story and how Trinity Health is striving to achieve those enterprise goals, but still allowing each of their regions to maintain a really necessary level of regional autonomy. And then to close, we're actually going to take a cool look at a case study that comes from St. Joseph Mercy Health System, some real live examples really in the digital front. And we've got some cool metrics that we're going to share there too from our regional partners. So thank you for joining. Again, we're going to save the questions for the end, but we do look forward to them. So just again, as a quick setup, coming off the heels of the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference at the beginning of this month, we were really reminded of a few critical trends in our industry. And the first is really being vertical integration. There are so many companies that are looking to gain greater control over the entire ecosystem. 2018 was a really, really big year. There's probably not a single person on the phone that didn't hear the word CVS Aetna. So that is clearly at the top of M&A activity, amongst others. We had Amazon, we had Berkshire Hathaway, we had JP Morgan. This slide from Kaufman Hall is really a good pictorial of what we see and what we expect to see a continued rise of as the healthcare model continues to be shaken up by massive, massive shifts in consumerism. We think these shifts are really going to force traditional healthcare systems to stop acting so traditional. Taking a step back to just in terms of what are some of the benefits that we see, there's really a need for an acquisition. The amount of innovation in healthcare continues to be really, really motivating for us. I think that speaks from both vendor and client side. We expect these trends to drive increased activity in 2019 and beyond. So without further ado, I'm going to actually turn it back over to Matt. He's going to dive with us a bit more around Trinity's.
Thanks, Rachel. If we can go to the next slide. Great. So in 2016, as the merger of Trinity Health and CHE concluded and the standard integration activities took shape, we really began to think about the bigger opportunities as we had more data in a centralized enterprise data warehouse, included billing data, demographics, acute, ambulatory, et cetera. We had address data and email addresses, procedure codes, but really knowing that marketing firms outside of Trinity Health were collecting additional third-party data that we could pair with our own data. We knew we could create a database that could be mined by region and nationally to efficiently target patients and prospects with relevant and timely marketing messages, unlike we've done ever before. We knew that if done correctly, prioritizing, starting small, we could also retain more patients, drive greater share per patient, and most importantly, we could show and demonstrate to the rest of the organization that marketing does in fact have a measurable and impactful ROI. In essence, we knew we could serve more. So it's really a balancing act. Trinity Health is different than many healthcare providers. Trinity Health is not a consumer-facing brand, nor do we have a singular set of operations. We knew that we needed to operate more like a single business unit, though, rather than 20 different business units. But where do we stop acting like a single business unit in marketing and act like a regional set of businesses as we've done for so many years? The obvious answer was the consolidation of data. We also knew that by working together, system office, with the regional health ministries, we could capture all the requirements up front, craft standardized digital marketing strategies, and still allow room for regional branding and operational differences. With more specific measurement and cost data, we could accurately measure cost per acquisition with a goal of driving costs down and leads or patient volume up. Now I'll turn it over to Karen Cameron, who will tell you more how we did this.
Thanks, Matt. And hello, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. This is Karen Cameron. So what you see in this graphic is a fairly consistent storyline in healthcare marketing, especially for systems who are embracing change. That is, most marketing departments have traditionally been operating as and seen as cost centers within a healthcare system. And you can see that represented on the left-hand side of the screen here. But I'm sure you know healthcare systems are beginning to recognize that our patients are, in fact, consumers, and they're becoming increasingly engaged. And the people we serve have really high expectations when it comes to their experience across the continuum of our healthcare system, as they should. And marketing has this opportunity to aim speak. We now have a chance to help transform the consumer experience and own image inside our system. So as we embrace the strategies and tools that improve the consumer's healthcare journey, marketing can move along this continuum shown here into being one of the most strategic assets a healthcare system can have. Our intent, of course, is to move further to the right-hand side of the screen. So we knew where we were. In our case, most of our ministries were still operating as cost centers for the most part. And we had a vision for where we wanted to go, but we kept asking ourselves, how in the world are we going to accomplish our goals when we have all these different markets across the country and without the data visibility that we really needed? So this next slide, Rachel, if you could advance.
I think there's a little lag, so I do apologize.
Yeah, not a problem. So this slide represents where Trinity Health started in our data exploration journey. We understood that part of our success would rely on the ability to share our successes through data, proof, if you will, that our marketing efforts were making a difference. And to that end, we quickly learned it's imperative to form a relationship with your data architecture and your data warehouse teams. We became best friends. And, you know, quite frankly, as a side note, actually, all of the teams learned something new from each other. We came to really respect some of the challenges our data teams faced, and they came to appreciate the importance of understanding the business owner needs and perspectives. So a lot of good came out of this process. Our first step was to understand the data that already existed in our enterprise data warehouse, the EDW, and we found that generally speaking, we had the following types of data: hospital billing data, physician billing data, employee data, in our case, Workday, and in some instances, call center data. Furthermore, we came to realize that while it provided a great start, the data alone wasn't enough to move us forward. So we realized that we needed a methodology that would allow us to scale and grow across the enterprise. We knew we had to develop strategies, processes, and procedures that would take the best of what we already knew and implemented and fold in some new ideas and ways of operating. This is where it became really critical to include a representative team of marketers from across the enterprise to work with the system office in achieving our goals. So it's important to note that Trinity Health's mission includes servant leadership, and that means we serve each other. We work collaboratively, and you know, while this approach can sometimes slow things down a bit, in the end, it's really helped us to be successful because, of course, you not only benefit from great minds within your organization, you get the buy-in from the start. So after doing our homework, that is, looking at the marketplace, understanding where we were and where we wanted to be, exploring available data, and involving the right people, we came to the realization that we needed a cloud-based enterprise solution to start bringing all of these data sources and information together. Again, just waiting for the little bit of a delay. Here we go.
A little bit of delay, yeah. Apologies.
Yeah. So bringing our data together meant we needed a system or platform that could start to fill in the blanks for missing data sources that would help us solve for smarter patient growth, increased patient loyalty, communication throughout the care continuum, and a demonstrated return on investment, of course. And you can see on this slide that the gray boxes represent the data sources that were by and large missing or incomplete. Therefore, we came to understand that by drawing data from our EDW and from a CRM data warehouse, we could begin accessing all of this rich information, thereby forming a more complete picture for our marketing efforts. So I think now is a good time to pause and step back from the data and technology for a minute and highlight the fact that Trinity Health recognized that having a technology platform alone likely wouldn't solve all of our needs. This is about the unification of how we do work. It basically entails focusing on three aspects: our strategic approach, processes that allow campaigns to be built, and the consumer or patient experience. Rolling off the last slide, we also knew that we needed a better method for standardizing our go-to-market strategies. Take service lines, service line campaigns, for example. We wanted the ability to start building scale for campaigns across the enterprise to stop, quote unquote, reinventing the wheel, if you will. We realized it'd be an incredible time saver to design campaign templates, for example, that could be easily repeated but customized for each regional health ministry's needs. And this is where those of us here at the system level could provide a lot of value to our ministries. We could develop tools, processes, procedures, and governance to bring consistency to our marketing endeavors while still allowing for local market personalization. Additionally, we identified best-in-class examples from our ministries, whether they be actual campaign collateral pieces, landing pages, processes, etc., and share these with our ministries so we could all benefit, again, taking advantage of the best our system has to offer. Furthermore, we became more consistent in our reporting, which helps us tell our success story. It also shows that we have unified, consistent goals, strategies, and tactics, and that our approach is yielding strong results. And Rachel, if you just want to hold on this slide for a second, I just wanted to point out, to accomplish all these things I've been talking about, we needed, one, a robust and holistic CRM platform, and two, vendor partners that had experience in the areas you see listed here, but who also understood the unique challenges we face in healthcare, and not just for us here at the system level, but more importantly for our regional health ministries, to enable them with the tools and information necessary to achieve their local and enterprise level goals. I'm going to shift now from the CRM platform and focus quickly on some of our integrated digital campaign strategies. We've got our strategies outlined here in three major categories: digital marketing, direct marketing, and patient journeys. In adopting these strategies, which are still relatively new to us, I think it's important to note that, adopting CRM doesn't mean that you therefore discard all of your traditional marketing tactics. Let's face it, adopting digital marketing requires a change in your thinking, and it's really natural to have some angst when letting go of something you've likely been doing for a long time. So while we certainly have been shifting more and more of our marketing dollars into these new digital techniques, there's still room for TV, billboards, radio, etc., and digital can actually help support them. The key is just to begin shifting the spending ratio to favor digital as the lead. And because Mitch is going to speak more directly to these marketing techniques and you can see them in action, I'm going to stop here and turn it over to Rachel.
Thank you, Karen. It's a great setup and it's a really, really important story. You know, I've been lucky and privileged from my personal involvement to stay, you know, with the Trinity Health team. It's been a very rewarding journey. I think Karen called on a couple critical points, and it's make as many best friends as you can as quickly as possible. These projects are long, they're lengthy, and I would be lying if I said they were easy. So it's finding as many people in the healthcare system that you can share the vision with. And again, to Karen's point, you guys can learn from one another. I think one of the really cool things that Trinity Health has done to push the envelope is, again, this enterprise data warehouse approach. We as a vendor are not new to data, but to be able to take in the amount of data that Trinity has across the nation, be able to really roll that up so you can see it at an enterprise level, but also give the regional levels access has been a really cool experience with them. So we are going to pivot now that we've had that great setup from Karen and Matt. You know, again, just what has that enterprise journey been? What is their vision and what are their goals? We're going to go ahead and turn it over to Mitch, and he's actually going to dive into how has this impacted him and his healthcare organization, and really what does this autonomy mean as they still are trying to reach those enterprise growth goals.
Great, thanks, Rachel. And just another comment to reiterate, I know Karen and Rachel have mentioned it, but it bears repeating that we've got a wide range of folks on the call today, so thank you. First and foremost, everybody on the call. I know we've got healthcare marketers from hospitals, health systems, vendors, different people working in this space, and I think what's important to know is that we're all kind of at a different point of our own digital transformation, some more established, some less, and everything in between. So really hoping there's some great questions at the end of today's discussion, and please don't hesitate to reach out afterwards because there's so much we can all learn from each other. So thanks again for your participation. And hopping into this first slide, we're going to talk about as kind of a real life example of a campaign that's currently in market in our region in Southeast Michigan for bariatrics. So kind of setting it up, in the past 2 to 3 years, we really evolved our go-to-market strategies with a focus on service lines that yield a higher return on marketing investment. So we really do that in 3 main ways. You know, first from omni-channel approach in terms of our marketing strategies really helps us be more present in all different areas, and we'll discuss that in a moment. Number 2, we really leverage the data, and I think it goes without saying, but we're learning today more than ever. We have more data than we've ever had access to before. And the real challenge is how do we pull insights from that data that are meaningful to our hospitals and health systems. And then third, focusing on commercial acquisition and service line procedures that will render out a high ROMI, so return on marketing investment. And then looking at CRM, which we've mentioned, nurturing is a big part of this. We're going to touch on that later in the last leg of this discussion, but it's something that really needs to be factored in when you look at ways to nurture consumers through the journey. And then finally, as you continue to stay in market, pulling data from your conversions is a really way to be smarter and let the data work for you. So that's kind of an exciting point that we're just starting to get at from our health systems perspective. So looking at the strategy and objectives for us, bariatrics is a big focus for our health system. Looking at all of our fiscal budget initiatives, this is one we felt we could really kind of push the needle on, real potential to show attributable growth. And in fact, we did so well out of the gate in this fiscal year, we've actually stretched our goal, which we'll talk about in a moment, but it's pretty exciting to see the campaign perform so well that we pushes our operational leaders to kind of increase the goal overall. And then from an objectives perspective, we kind of talk about growing market share through percentage gains. And something I'd like to point out here for marketers on the call, working with strategic planning, your local strategic planning groups can really help you identify where there's opportunity for market share. And having access to these tools and technology, you can be razor sharp and focus in on those areas where you know you have opportunity to gain additional market. So going back to kind of the integrated channel strategy for this campaign, we've been in market for about a year, just over a year, and we are pushing out content on search, so Google, social, display. We are very fortunate to have access to a regional call center from an engagement perspective, and then physicians are critical. If you can get them on board and engaged in terms of participating in seminars, it really helps from a nurturing perspective. And then taking a look at the CTAs or call to actions, you'll see a wide range of soft call to actions, such as the assessment, to a harder call to action, like requesting an appointment. And it's important to kind of keep an eye on how those different CTAs are performing and shift your strategy accordingly. In general, what you want to do is the longer you're in market, you can almost decrease the amount of leads you're getting, knowing that you're getting more qualified leads, pointing them to a request an appointment.
Yeah, and Mitch, I'm going to chime in just a little bit here. One of the things that I want to point out just from our vantage point on the partner side is that call center engagement. You know, I would like to say that St. Joseph Mercy Health is fortunate enough to have that operationalized, but the fact of the matter is that marketing had to go out and also try and forge that relationship. It's really, really critical. And I recognize it's not always available within healthcare systems. Sometimes those are disjointed and it's not a piece you can always fold in easily to the campaign, but being able to add that piece on as a bolt-in really, really seals the deal. One of the things we got in the market is that sometimes even when you've got a fully campaign, final acquisition point, that final conversion, a lot of times people still like to pick up the phone. So it's just something I like to call out, and Mitch and his team have done a great job partnering with their call center.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rachel, and I would take that a step further. I know Karen was talking about making best friends with your data folks as marketers. You got to make best friends with your call center, your patient patient call centers, the central scheduling. All those folks really help. So moving along, this is a slide that kind of shows the evolution of some of the creative we've had in market, you know, looking at our landing page, elements from the guide, our paid social and display. And I think what's interesting here is you can kind of see evolution. Some of the elements, particularly the paid social in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, has less branding elements than the others. And we're able to do some A/B testing to determine what performs better in market. We've actually noticed that particular asset has performed really well. Now, the caveat to this is that, yes, we are scaling back from a design and brand perspective, but your brand is critical throughout the journey. So I think that's what's really important. As consumers go through their journey, through the landing page, working with your call center, your brand, the experience, the look and the feel becomes critical to your success and ability to convert them into patients. So this slide is really intended to kind of bridge the content set up into the how does it actually work. So it's a great visualization of the entire journey. I think what's really important to point out here is that all the elements are intentional, way ahead of when the patients actually convert. So you can see where the content is pushed out from a search, social, and display perspective, the different landing pages are directed to, the nurturing aspect that happens throughout the journey. And then, of course, all the requests and appointment leads are funneled directly to the call center if you have access to that final conversion point. And one thing to point out here, too, is that although we don't, in Southeast Michigan, we don't really have a refined or a hardwired nurturing solution yet, that's kind of the next step for us. So journey mapping is really critical, I think, for hospitals and health systems to kind of get to that next level from a marketing perspective. And that entails marketing automation through triggered emails. That's kind of the next step for us and something we hope to do in the coming months.
Yeah, I agree, Mitch, too. Before we switch to the next slide here, I mean, it's all about the right message, right place, right time, and that's really where some of the automation tools that I know you guys are digging into will get the job done.
We'll get there. So this is a slide, and this is all the information has been removed. It's a fake name, but this is a real patient and a real experience that kind of brings it all together. And I think it's great. It's Rachel's comment previously about the engagement center and your call center being critical for those that really want to hear a voice. I think when we see this story, you'll understand why. So this is a patient that back in February of 2018, she interacted with one of our ads on Facebook, actually took a health risk assessment, had a score that was slightly high, so she was deemed eligible or a candidate for bariatric surgery. Over the next few months, various nurturing tactics were implemented, some of which we saw previously. And then in May, she actually called our call center. So one of our customer care reps in the regional call center spoke to Amy, was able to hand her off to our clinic, where she was scheduled for a seminar the next day. At the end of the seminar, she was able to schedule a consult with the physician or the surgeon on May 8th. So that entire process was 7 days. And this is a great story to tell, because there is also, as Karen kind of alluded to earlier, we are working with consumers. And this is, to some extent, the expectation, the experience. So we really strive to meet this. And then later in July, Amy had surgery, and you can see resolution of some of the comorbidities and a great result. So just a perfect visualization of demand generation at its finest, and something we hope to do consistently moving forward.
Yeah, and I'm going to chime in because, again, I cannot harp enough. We've been kind of privy to seeing this happen in action. This is real. This is not a made-up story. And the point I want to hammer home, 5 months. 5 months from digital engagement, first interaction that Amy had with the healthcare system, to actually getting the treatment that she needed. For a bariatrics campaign from our space, that is an incredibly speedy time frame. We typically see on average, 12-month attribution periods. It takes 12 months to get through labs and services. So this just shows an incredibly good job and a well-orchestrated campaign with operations done by Mitch and the marketing team, along with all those operational leaders. So this is a consumer experience that people expect. And this case proves that if we can meet those demands and deliver, they will follow through.
Absolutely.
So give us the good stuff, Mitch. Let's talk about some performance.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so going into performance of some of the metrics from the campaign, where we're at. Again, as I mentioned, we're just over a year into this particular phase of the campaign. So you can see we've seen an incredible increase in the amount of leads we've captured in 2017 going into 18. These are calendar years. And really that's a credit to our willingness to stay in market. I think that's a really good message too. The attribution window, as Rachel kind of mentioned previously, depending on the service line, can be as long as 18 months. So your willingness to stay in market really helps kind of increase the amount of leads. We've also seen a 15% overall click-to-lead conversion, meaning of all the clicks that we're seeing, we're actually seeing 15% of those convert and fill out forms, allowing us to start that conversation. And then in terms of regional visibility, this is a great point to mention, because having access as a local marketer to data, not only through CRM, but through your call center, really helps you understand your customer and understand where you're having success and how you can shift accordingly to continue that success moving forward. And then lastly, looking at our kind of media mix, where we've seen success, a 9% lead conversion rate for search, 17% for Facebook, and not a lot in banner, and this is really display ads. And a good thing to point out here is that display ads through a digital campaign are they're almost more of an awareness tactic, where the search and the social really drives the lead. So we're really comfortable with where those numbers are.
Great, thank you, Mitch.
Sure. And then this just kind of highlights some of the year-over-year comparison that we've seen. We mentioned the digital leads. You continue to see an incredible increase. But as I mentioned at the beginning of this portion, it's not just about the amount of leads. You're really getting more of those qualified leads. And I think we're getting to that point right now where we're starting to really understand how to hone in on a harder call to action to nurture people down towards the seminar, towards a consult or surgery. And then our cost per lead, or CPL, we've seen a significant decrease there as well, meaning the amount you're paying for each lead. Again, this speaks to working with the campaign team from eVariant, to really help us from a lead optimization perspective be more as efficient as we can be. And then this is kind of a cool one, the orange block. We've actually seen an increase in our OR block time as many as 24 hours a week for 2 of our surgeons. And as a marketer, it's pretty empowering to be in meetings where operational leaders are increasing our block time based on the success of a campaign. It really kind of shows the power of these campaigns and how it can really affect the bottom line. And then search, we've seen an increase. Again, it kind of speaks to the overall optimization of the campaign being more efficient, allowing you to really focus in on key search words and ad groups that are effective and that work. And we have seen an increase in procedures to the tune of 20% from 2017 into 18, which is really exciting. So in addition to the attributable volume, we're also seeing year-over-year growth. And then ROI, that's always the important one, 70% net growth in campaign return from 17 to 18. So that's again, great results overall and something we're really proud of.
Yeah, you guys should be. And the one that we talk about ROI all the time. And as a marketer, that's what's keeping us in business, right? Is that we have to be able to validate that we're not just out there doing pretty pictures anymore. We're actually making an impact on the bottom line. But the orange block is actually my favorite in this story so far, because it shows that marketing is much more than that. It's feeding a couple things. It's feeding bottom line business to your physicians, to your surgeons. It's also showing that you forge a relationship with those surgeons. They know what's happening with the digital campaign. You're having those open conversations, and they're willing to start flexing their schedule. And I think most importantly, you're meeting consumer demand. If you've got the demand there, you need to be able to operationalize around it. So I love that statistic, Mitch, and I think it's a really cool one to share.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, so we're actually going to turn it over now to Karen. So we've had kind of a look in Mitch's world. And again, they're doing a lot of things at St. Joseph's Mercy Health System and across the state of Michigan. Bariatrics is one of many case studies that Mitch can share. It's a really powerful one. So I think what is a cool pivot here is to have Karen just give us a summary of kind of what are they seeing again now at the enterprise level. And we're talking all the regions that are participating from across the nation. So Karen, I'll let you talk through those.
Sure. Thanks, Rachel. And thank you, Mitch. So everybody, as you can see, Mitch's Bariatrics campaign is seeing fantastic results. But what's moreover is this is just one of dozens of campaigns and several service lines we're running across the enterprise. And while not all campaigns are seeing these results, they are all performing very well, and we're really excited about it. I also wanted to point out the metrics you see here are taken directly from our master campaign performance metrics. They're up to date as of today. And again, we're using calendar years as the differentiation, just so that you know. I did want to mention kind of a cool call out here. Our impression share in search has actually decreased in 2018, but our click volume and click-through rates have really improved dramatically. And this validates for us anyway that we're doing less spray and pray marketing, and we're using data and insights to get smarter with our marketing while producing better results. And Mitch, pretty much spoke to the tactics behind that. You can also see that with these new tools, we have an incredible level of visibility, both at the regional and the enterprise level, and we'll be able to track continued growth against our enterprise goals. So it's really exciting. I think with that, and before turning it back to Rachel for some final thoughts in our Q&A, again, I'd like to thank the Becker's team and those of you watching today. And I wanted to reiterate Mitch's point that he makes earlier, because I think it's important. This has been and continues to be a journey for us. We began with baby steps. We still have a great deal to learn. And I really want to encourage those of you who might be considering a change like this in your organization that you're not alone and you can do this. And it doesn't have to be all at once. You can start small, build slowly, and before you know it, you'll be attracting and retaining more patients. You'll be improving your ROI. But really, I think the most important thing is you'll be helping people get the care they need when they need it. And that's really all I had to say. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And Mitch, I mean, again, these are powerful stories. And there's going to be more, right? This is the key that Karen said, is that they're on a journey. That journey is hopefully never going to end, even as we learn and we get smarter. There's always going to be new technology to bring into the story. There's going to be new service line efforts that we have to meet, growth into the retention game. So there's still a lot to be done, but I want to call out the Trinity team and all their respective regions. They've been an amazing bunch. And I think the thing that really stands out about this health system is that they're always willing to learn. And that's critical. You will sometimes fail. You will sometimes fall down on your knees. And it's not always pretty, but the ability to be able to fall down and pick yourself back up is what gets you to these success points. It's proof points you can share both with your region, you can share with inside your walls. So I think just in closing, before we turn to Q&A, from my cheat sheets here, I think balance is key. I think that's one of the critical points that comes through for us, particularly when you've got a large system that continues to potentially acquire additional regional systems. It's finding that balance. We've seen a lot of what Trinity Health is trying to do in terms of standardization, and while that is great and ideal, I think they've done a really good job also recognizing that autonomy is absolutely not the enemy, it's their friend. Consumers are going to need different things in different markets. We're always certainly going to have a baseline healthcare need across the United States, but regionalization is different. A Chicago market is going to act very, very differently than a regional health system that may be sitting in Iowa. And we need to flex to the consumers, and the model that Trinity Health has built is allowing for exactly that. And I think it's going to set a really cool standard as we start to grow into this, enterprise technology vision. So thank you again, everybody, for joining. We're going to take a pause and actually hand it back over to the Becker's team, along with the eVariant team, to do a little bit of Q&A.
Thank you, Matt, Karen, Mitch, and Rachel for that fantastic presentation. We will now begin today's question and answer session. Please submit any questions you have by typing them into your control panel in the space labeled Enter a Question for Staff and clicking Send. We will try to get through as many questions as we have time for today. Our first question has to do with talent. This audience member wants to ask, tech is one component. How did you handle talent gaps on the team in executing this strategy?
Karen, I'm going to let you address that. I think it would be cool to actually hear from your standpoint, Karen, at the enterprise level. And then Mitch, you probably have your own experiences too from the regional. So maybe hearing the differences or similarities would be really cool.
Sure. Yeah, actually, I think that's a fantastic question. And I don't know if I have all of the answers because, as we've been saying, we're learning as we go. But you're right. Sometimes we'll get so far along our journey. Data's a prime example where you start to get into areas where many of us maybe had some experience, but not a great deal of experience. So really from the enterprise level, what we've been doing as much as possible is leveraging the talent we already have within our teams, really across the nation. I know from my perspective and here at System Office, it's important to have people who are open-minded and willing to take on new tasks and learn new things. I didn't start out knowing as much about data, but I can tell you this, I know a lot more than I did 12 months ago, more than I ever thought I would have to know, but I found that I've really been enjoying it. And then sometimes we'll go out to our ministries and actually work together to solve for some of these talent gaps, if you will. And then I think it's also really important to note that we also lean pretty heavily on our vendor partners like eVariant to help us. Mitch, I don't know from your perspective if you wanted to add anything, or even you, Rachel.
Yeah, hey Karen, this is Mitch. I think those are great points. Just echoing what you said, I think what's really important, we've spent a lot of time saying how far healthcare is behind when you talk about CRM and demand generation and digital strategies. But I think it's really time for us to stop saying that and just get into market. Find ways, regardless of where your identified talent gaps are, getting into market, don't let that stop you or overwhelm you. Getting into market, I think, is the best thing to do to understand and to learn not only about the technology, but the strategies involved. So that would be my message.
Yeah, and the Avariant team, for example, they do have they're pretty wide and deep in terms of how they support us in areas that maybe we didn't expect that we needed support. So I think it is important to point that out as well. And I also think it's important to say, you know, we're pretty lean here at Trinity Health. I think that's actually a very important point to make, that we have small but mighty teams across the nation, but we all have quite a bit on our plates, and we still are able to make it work, so don't be discouraged.
I appreciate that sentiment from partner and vendor side. That's really what we try to preach, and it's easier said than done, and we recognize that. I mean, we've been doing this again, but we're also not the ones in the hospital walls and in the trenches. So I think it's pivotal that you lean on your partners, and we're not just talking your technology partners. You've got to find the right fit. Maybe it is an all-in-one in your case, but that's not always how it works. Oftentimes, it's a huge crew of us partners that are helping to support, and you need to make sure that you really do your homework to build up that support network as you continue this journey.
Thank you so much for sharing your feedback on that question. Our next audience member is curious about challenges, and he asks, what's the biggest challenge in taking this strategy across regions and states?
Ooh, that's a Karen one.
Yeah. Well, there are, in fact, many challenges. I think perhaps among the biggest challenges we've encountered does boil down to the data, because it's among the first big important pieces, because quite frankly, if we want to be able to have the metrics that we shared with you at the end of this presentation, we really have to have insight into our data to get that return on our marketing investment, to understand, you know, how many people are actually converting it into patients and what kinds of procedures they're having. It relies on data. And so for us here at Trinity Health, and I don't think we're alone. We have multiple health systems with different EMRs, data warehouse information that is missing, incomplete. We're chasing where certain feeds are coming from. So I think that's a key piece, and I know I talk about that a lot in my part of the presentation, but it really is critical to help us get the insight. That being said, it doesn't mean you have to have everything together. You can still start garnering leads. You can still attract patients, but again, to have the insights, it's just really important to have that data piece. Rachel, Mitch, I don't know if you had anything else to add from your perspective.
I would not change a thing about that statement. I think that is the most difficult part of implementing any type of, not just technology, but again, kind of this belief system. It's really hard to verify. You're always going to run into, unfortunately, naysayers that just can't see because it's not their space, and that's okay. It's your job and it's your mission to find the data to help validate. You cannot dispute numbers when you're sound on the data. And that is where the rubber meets the road. If your data is not sound and you start to socialize this, you may end up causing more work for yourself in the end. So Karen, nope, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Data is typically the biggest challenge. Mitch, I don't know about from your purview. I know it's always a little bit different within each of our walls.
Yeah, it's true. And I would just go back to the focus of today's discussion around autonomy. I think that's really helped us from a health system and hospital perspective, is having access to the technology, but also allowing local regions to have autonomy and kind of work within their own style and systems is critical.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful to understand. And our next question is, on average, how many campaigns of this nature do you execute in a year?
Boy,
and maybe
so there's
helpful from a system level, to start.
Yeah, so we're running, I would say about 11 service line campaigns. So we have quite a few service lines running. We have 11 regional health ministries on CRM, although they're in various points along the continuum. Some are still beginning CRM journey. Some are, like Mitch's organization, are much further along, but we have dozens of campaigns in market. And Rachel, I know you also have some insights into that because the variant is helping us with many, but that's a pretty fair statement.
Yeah, and I think the key there is that you guys have gone out and kind of span the service lines. And the cool thing I would add about that again is that, of course, there's always going to be enterprise growth goals with service lines, but Trinity Health, again, under that autonomy theme, has allowed their regions to really go in and say, this is what's going to help us achieve our regional goals, but also help you achieve the enterprise goals. So the service line piece is not a one-size-fits-all, which is kind of nice. So. And Mitch, I don't know if you want to share your experiences. Obviously, you guys are running certainly more than bariatrics, but the number is not coming to me.
Yeah, we're right now we've got 5 campaigns in market with hopes of increasing that as we move farther along. But I think a great point here is the importance of staying in market, really identifying areas that kind of meet the business needs of your hospital and health system, and starting to evolve from the concept of campaigns to ongoing growth strategies and how your efforts can support that. But yeah, we're at 5 now and hoping to increase.
And it might be a good segue into another point. So we're talking pretty specifically about service line campaigns right now, but because that's our focus right now. But as time moves on, there's plenty of opportunity for population health type campaigns as well. It doesn't have to be necessarily just service line campaigns. So I think that's just important to point out, because that's an area where we want to move into and grow. We're just not there yet. Again, we still have a lot to learn, but we wanted to start with what we knew and where we had some pressure and, quite frankly, where we could see growth. So in time, we're going to start shifting, I'm sure, towards different kinds of campaigns. Just wanted to make that point.
Yeah, that's awesome, Karen. And thank you for adding that in. From our vantage point, everybody's at a different stage on that, but there's definitely, I think, a growing interest in being able to span into that area. It's pivotal, and we're all going to have to. The beauty is the technology can expand into that with you. It's just a matter of learning and growing and obviously hitting your first goals and then being able to transition. So well stated.
Thank you all so much for clarifying that. And it looks like we are running up against time for the webinar. So for our final question, we have, how do you protect patient data and personal information privacy with this type of system?
I can speak from just a technology piece, and then obviously this is critical, and I know this is something that has been heavily evaluated by Trinity and at the regional level. But in terms of CRM technology, typically what you have is a platform that's only storing base level contact information. Again, CRM really is healthcare agnostic. It's meant to be contact relationship management. And we view patients and leads, whether or not they're a patient yet, as a contact. The most pivotal thing that needs to be accessible to your operational leaders is typically a first name, last name, and a phone number. How we are able to protect HIPAA and security is that data is not actually stored in a CRM platform. That is a front-facing engine to be able to get your metrics, your visualizations, and basic contact info. That is where the data warehouse becomes critical. So Karen talked quite a bit about that in the beginning. That actually sits as a secure warehouse outside of a typical CRM platform. So Karen, I don't know if you want to elaborate a little bit on that just from Trinity's point of view, because obviously you have your own EDW as well that's housing that information.
Yeah, I think you make good points, Rachel. And there's an entire process we have to go through to cross the T's and dot the I's, so to speak, to make sure that, you know, all the data is secure, that, you know, first of all, at the campaign level, when someone's interacting with our campaign, they're offering up just basic information about themselves. And really that's for matching purposes in CRM, so that if we have someone in the system already, we want to make sure we're identifying the correct person and we don't have duplicates moving forward. Typically first name, last name, sometimes a birth date or a birth year if people are a little squeamish about giving the actual birth date. Again, this is for matching, a zip code, and if we can get an email address and a phone number, that's always a good thing. So primarily speaking, when we're capturing that kind of data up front, that's the kind of information we're talking about. Mitch, from your perspective, I know you have more access potentially to data, but it's very restricted.
Very. Yeah, I mean, I would, you know, what you know, Rachel's kind of speaking from a 30,000-foot view, and Karen, you more from an enterprise perspective. And then for my world as a local marketer, I can tell you, yes, we can get to the patient information, but it's not easy, and we do it only for the purpose of understanding and trying to validate conversions and different operational metrics on our end. So I guess that's how I would answer the question, that it's definitely well protected and takes a lot of digging from a marketer's perspective to get to that information.
Yeah, and it's helpful. I like that we each have a different vantage point. There'd be two other critical things I would call out on that question. One, when it comes to the campaigns, the bariatric example that Mitch presented to us today, it's very important to keep in mind that we're not going out targeting, you know, John Smith. We don't know John Smith. What we're doing and helping our partners do is to be able to put digital facing ads up that require that actual consumer patient raise their hand and provide us back the contact information. So that's a really nice, safe way for this to work in a very sensitive healthcare world. We've got to be cautious about that. But what we're not doing is going out and cold soliciting. We're just creating engaging materials, and we're trying to fill a need and be at the right place at the right time, where they're motivated to actually raise their hand and say, you know what, I am interested in that service. Can you please give me a call back, or can you please send me an email? So I think that's the one critical thing. And secondary to that, that is the beauty of having a nice CRM engine, is that you don't have to have direct access to all of that meat data, that actual clinical data. It sits there in a secure data warehouse, but if you have the right tools and technology, those calculations will happen for you behind the scenes and actually be able to cut out the need to access that and simply present the end results. So just a really critical thing, I think, to keep in mind for those particularly early in the journey.
Thank you all so much. Really great points. And before we close out the webinar, I do want to ask Rachel, Matt, Karen, Mitch, do any of you have any final thoughts you'd like to share?
I will start, and I'd like to pass it over. And my final thought is again, thank you all for joining. But I want to give hats off to Karen, Mitch, and the Trinity team and all of their respective regional health ministries. I mentioned it before, but this journey is not a light one. And I just think that they've done such an incredible job, and they've done it with optimism, which is really a critical part of success. So Karen, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Rachel. And I'll speak on behalf of Matt and I. He asked me if I wouldn't mind. Really, we just wanted to say thank you. We're so glad you joined us. Again, offer encouragement. It's not too difficult. Take it a little bit at a time. It's possible you just get there one step at a time. So again, thank you. Really appreciate your time.
Just echoing Karen and Rachel, thank you to the Becker's team and to Variant Trinity for the opportunity to be here and ask questions, network. I think that's really a great takeaway and a good closing comment.
Yeah.
For everybody on the call, find ways to interact and learn from each other as we continue to evolve down this journey.
That's now all the time we have for today, and I want to thank Matt, Karen, Mitch, and Rachel for their excellent presentation, and eVariant for sponsoring today's webinar. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we look forward to having you join us for future webinars.